Welcome to the MindBod Adventure Pod, where every week we dive into a different practice, a different perspective on life, and you try it out with us. Join us on Substack at mindbodpod.com to watch this episode as a video podcast. And if you want to support our crazy adventures and get fun perks and exclusives along the way, join us as a paid subscriber. Now, onto this week's adventure.
Dr. Aditi, welcome to the MindBod Adventure Pod. I am your co-host, Jeff, and with me is...
Sasha.
It is such a pleasure to be here, guys.
So great. And so we met at a Calm event because I make meditations and you make programs for Calm. And immediately when I saw your presentation, I'm like, oh gosh, we have to get her on the podcast. So, because you have this big book, The 5 Resets, you have a whole history of being passionate, interested in the subject of stress and more. So maybe you might tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and that book, and then we can use it as a way to get into some stress busting practices.
That would be great. I guess I'll start with your question of what got me into this and why am I passionate about stress, burnout, mental health. So I'm a physician and that's my expertise, mental health, stress, burnout, and resilience. And so many patients along the way used to ask me, what's this about? Like, how do you even get into it? And at the time, I was like, oh, it's just something I've always been interested in. But then when I had to write my book, The 5 Resets, I had to get real about why, like, what's my origin story and why did I want to write about this topic? The truth is that I was a stressed patient before I became a doctor with an expertise in stress. I was a medical resident working 80 hours a week and seeing death and dying on a daily basis. This one particular rotation, my second year of medical training, I was in the cardiac ICU, taking care of everyone else's hearts and not really thinking about my own. And I felt a stampede of wild horses. It was terrifying, knocked the wind out of me, right across my chest. And then the nurse that I was working with at the time quickly gave me some orange juice, and within seconds, that feeling passed. Never happened again at work. But when I went home, for 2 weeks straight, every night that I would go to bed, I would get that stampede of wild horses across my chest. And so I finally went to go see a doctor, even though I was a doctor in training. My first thought was like, oh, I'm in the cardiac ICU. You know, we call it medical student syndrome. When you're learning to become a doctor, wherever you are, you start having these symptoms of things that the diseases that you're taking care of. So initially I was like, yeah, it's nothing. It's probably just, like I'm just in the cardiac ICU. But when I went to go see my doctor, it happened so many nights and it was quite terrifying and it wasn't getting better. So my doctor, of course, very diligently, she did the full workup, tested my blood labs, my electrolytes, anemia, thyroid, EKG, heart ultrasound, it's called an echocardiogram. Everything checked out fine. And so very reassuringly, with a big smile, she was like, it's just stress. Everything looks great. Relax a little. I know it's hard. Medical training, we've all been there. So I left, not really knowing what to do with just relax or it's just stress. So I did all of the things at the time. I was single at the time. So I went to movies, retail therapy. I took a trip. I went to spa days with my girlfriends, had dinners and with my family. I mean, I tried everything and nothing really worked. And only when I put my scientist hat on and really read the science of what is stress, how does it affect your brain and your body, only then was I able to find my way out of stress. And that's when I vowed to become the doctor I needed during that difficult time. So I wouldn't say to a patient who came in saying, hey, I think I'm experiencing stress, or when I do the full workup and I say, oh, it's just stress, like just relax. Very well intentioned, but not really helpful. And, the first reaction I had when my doctor said, oh, it's just stress, I was like, stress doesn't happen to people like me. I'm resilient, because I was taught at a very early stage of my medical training that pressure makes diamonds. And so anytime I was in a tough spot in my medical training, I'd be like, hey, diamond in the making. And then my diamond cracked. And so, long story long, here I am. I'm a doctor now with an expertise in stress, resilience, mental health, and burnout, but I will never forget that very terrifying experience of being a stressed patient and really looking for answers and there not being any. And that is really why I developed a clinical practice in stress management. One of the first studies I did, there is this shocking statistic that 60 to 80% of all primary care visits have a stress-related component, and yet only 3% Yeah, not surprising. And yet only 3% of doctors counsel for stress.
Wow.
So I wanted my work to close that gap.
Wow. Well, I want to highlight something in what you said, like just stress.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the ultimate gaslighting, like just stress. It's like, it's not real and it doesn't really have that much of an impact. That's the implications, or it's not, or there's nothing we can do about it. But let's just talk for a second about the impacts of stress. I mean, they're significant. They have all kinds of mind body reverberations. How do you see that as a stress doctor about those impacts?
You know, Jeff, it's so interesting because that idea of like, it's just stress, it'll pass. It is very much like gaslighting someone's lived experience. And we do it all the time in medicine, not because doctors aren't, it's not that they don't care. It's simply that doctors do not have the time. For a doctor to truly do their job well, they need to work 27 hours a day. So just statistically impossible, right? With all of the other demands of insurance companies and all the paperwork that they have to fill out. So it's not that doctors and patients alike, it's, everyone knows that stress is a bad thing and it's happening all the time, but it's really the elephant in the exam room. And often, both for doctors and patients, no one really understands, because stress is this like vague, nebulous thing all around, no one's really putting any boundaries around it or quantifying it. And so I hope through my work and through other people's work that we can start thinking about stress like blood pressure, something that you can measure every 4 weeks, manage, and really start getting ahead of. And so stress, to answer your question, Jeff, it can affect nearly every organ system and every condition. That's not to say stress causes medical conditions. I want to make that distinction. It's correlated to. So even that statistic of 60 to 80% of all primary care visits have a stress-related component. It's not that patients are going in saying, oh, I'm stressed, but like me, they're going in for abdominal pain or chest pain or headaches, and it is worsened by stress because the doctor will do like the full workup and say, oh, it's nothing. And so stress can affect your body head to toe. Physical manifestations of stress include, like me, the stampede of wild horses across your chest. You may experience headaches, neck pain, dizziness, back pain, eye strain, abdominal pain, breathing problems, numbness, tingling, dizziness. I mean, the list goes on and on. And mental manifestations of stress are things like anxiety, depression, insomnia, mood disorders, irritability, when you're emotionally labile. Again, the first step is always to go see your doctor. Make sure there isn't what we call an organic etiology, meaning there isn't something happening in your body to cause these symptoms, because that also happens, right? Stress is a diagnosis of exclusion in the medical world, meaning we have to exclude everything else. And then you say it's stress, but it can't be just stress. We need some real tools to manage it, not just, send patients on their merry way to like figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, it just, this whole conversation about it being just stress, it just reminds me of growing up in my family. I remember everyone being so stressed, and we talked about stress all the time. It's like my grandma was like, I'm stressed. My grandpa's stressed. But it was just, it's so ubiquitous that I think that's why people kind of toss around that it just stress. It's like, well, me too. I have it too. You're not more stressed than I am, and it kind of, we all pass it around until it's so normalized that saying just stress, it's like, it's like the air that we breathe or something, without taking a step back and saying, wait, I don't think our nervous systems were created or like evolved to handle this much stress.
Totally. It's like we all believe that, oh, this is just how life is supposed to be, right? And it's like lots of reasons for that: cultural, societal, intergenerational. But in fact, your brain and your body are truly expertly designed to handle short bursts of acute stress. It's called your stress response. And we can talk about the biology a little later in our conversation, or even now. It's basically that your body, evolutionarily, when we all lived as tribes people, when you were in a forest and if you saw a tiger, you're either going to fight the tiger or run away. That's the fight or flight response. And then you come back to baseline. The challenge is, Tasha, that like now there is no baseline. These stresses aren't acute. It's chronic stress. The metaphorical tigers are everywhere. Financial troubles, relationship challenges, climate emergencies, humanitarian crises. When we're scrolling all of the news that we're consuming. And so these tigers are all around us. That stress response is always on in the background at a low hum. And while your brain and your body are expertly designed to handle short bursts of stress, they certainly aren't designed to handle this ongoing, chronic, cyclical stress without a respite.
Dr. Aditi. You're stressing me out.
Do you know what this reminds me of? It's I can't remember who said it, but he was the medical doctor to the Dalai Lama. So he comes from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And in the Tibetan system, being stressed or being like really on edge and, anxious and depressed, it's called lung. It's like a wind disorder. And Alan Wallace was telling me this story. He was saying, as I meet Westerners, I'm noticing that all of you guys have lung. Like all of you, it's like cultural across the entire Western world. But considering you all have 100% level lung, you're doing okay. Like he was just so surprised because from that system, it's like once you have lung, it's a big deal. Like you stop everything, you go into rest, it's like breath meditation, and you're taking all sorts of organic Tibetan medicines. So for them, like when you reach a level of stress, it's stop everything, right? So I don't think he knew that people could actually function for like lifetimes in whole societies. He was like, this is very surprising. You're all doing very well considering you're all like on the brink.
You're all basically in the
you're all insane.
I think a lot of that has to do with this idea of resilience. So, my book is The 5 Resets, Rewire Your Brain for Less Stress and More Resilience. And when I was writing that subtitle, I was like cringing at the idea of resilience. Like, oh, do I really want to put that word into this subtitle? Because it's this idea, like what you're saying, the chronic feelings and just being like powering through. It's this idea of toxic resilience that, mind over matter, keep going, push past boundaries, no matter what. Whereas that's not the true definition of resilience. So many of us, the same way my initial reaction with my doctor was like, I'm not stressed, I'm resilient. Because I was living the resilience myth or this idea of toxic resilience. And truly, the real scientific definition of resilience is your innate biological ability to adapt, recover, and grow in the face of life's challenges. But resilience doesn't function in a vacuum. You need a little bit of healthy stress, and we can talk about the difference with healthy and unhealthy stress, but that's true resilience. And true resilience honors your boundaries, really understands the human limitations, like you said, Tasha, for rest and recovery. And it celebrates your ability to say no. But now, the reason all of us, like the 3 of us and so many people probably listening, cringe at the word resilience. It's like truly cringeworthy. You have a visceral response when someone's like, be more resilient. You're like, ugh. It's because you, especially over the last 5 years, but even before, society has really changed that definition, and it's morphed into like this dark, sinister, toxic resilience.
Right. Yeah, it's a way of just minimizing your problems, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's building resilience. And that's the end of that conversation. It's like, oh,
that's
thanks.
right.
I was trying to tell you about how I'm like on the edge of suicide right now. But yeah, I guess it's building
You're so resilient.
But you're so resilient. You got this. You're resilient. Okay. So you have a protocol that you kind of unpack through your book, The 5 Resets. And we thought, with you, if you're that we could go through this with you one by one. Does that feel like a good time to do that?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I just want to first make a distinction between good stress and bad stress. So like, why did I write the 5 resets? And like, like we've talked about this idea of, yes, we are all stressed, but do we really need to live this way? There's 2 kinds of stress, and not all stress is created equal. There is healthy, productive stress. Scientifically, we call that adaptive stress. And then there is unhealthy, unproductive, dysfunctional stress. Scientifically, maladaptive stress. And Jeff, when you were asking, like, what are the physical and mental health manifestations of stress, when we throw around that word stress, what we're really talking about is unhealthy stress, maladaptive stress. Because healthy stress examples are like rooting for your favorite sports team, falling in love, buying a new home or getting a promotion or taking a vacation, planning a trip. All of these are healthy stress. They move your life forward. The goal of life is not to live a life with 0 stress. It's actually biologically impossible. You need a little bit of healthy stress to get you up out of bed every day. It's what got us on this call, what got us our schedule synced, and all of us together here today was that little bit of healthy stress. It's forward momentum. It's supposed to activate you and make you energized. The challenge is not about eliminating stress, because that's virtually impossible and actually biologically impossible, because you need a little bit of healthy stress to get out of bed, to engage in the world. The goal of life is to create and have healthy amounts of stress that serve you rather than harm you. And so when I wrote the 5 resets, it's all about transforming your relationship from stress away from unhealthy, maladaptive stress that causes all sorts of mental and physical health manifestations back to healthy levels of stress that can move your life forward in a positive and hopeful and productive direction. So when I was setting up the framework for the 5 resets, I was thinking about the thousands of patients I've taken care of, how I solved my own stress struggle and came out and found the other side. And the 5 resets are essentially 5 mindset shifts. They're small but mighty. And in each mindset shift, there's 2 or 3 strategies that are all science backed. And so, total, I would say there's about 15 science backed strategies in the 5 resets out of hundreds that I have prescribed to patients over the years. But these were the ones that were the most impactful, that patients were able to resonate most with. And so we can walk through what these 5 resets are, what these mental frameworks are, and then maybe I can offer one practical suggestion for each of these resets so people can actually try this in the safety and comfort of their own home. The other thing I will say that's really important to me is, as a physician, I've taken care of so many patients from all walks of life with varying resources. So everything in the 5 resets and everything I'll ever talk about is always free. It's cost free. That's really important to me because while we know this in our work of mind, body, and wellness, there's so many things that cost a lot of money that are not accessible to the vast majority of people. And so I wanted to make sure that whatever I offer and talk about will always be free. It will always be science backed and time efficient because, like you said, Jeff, this conversation's causing you stress. You don't want people to feel stressed trying to solve their stress. That defeats the purpose.
Yeah, and it's really heartbreaking because stress is one of those things that really attacks marginalized communities and people, in a really, really community bending kind of way. Like, it's just so ubiquitous. And so many of the ways to help people are so expensive. And I mean, people can spend an entire lifetime trying to fix these problems, not having resources for anything else.
That's right. And, these structural inequities, a lot of the work that I do at Harvard, I'm on faculty at Harvard Medical School and now have transitioned to teaching students exclusively. I don't see patients anymore. And a lot of the work I do is focusing on community-based organizations and interventions that can help, build resiliency. Because it's so important for people to have that level of accessibility because, like you said, Tasha, I mean, certain groups are disproportionately affected, low-income communities, women, certain cultural and ethnic groups. So, we can dive into that data if we want, but really everyone has some level of stress right now in this time, now more than ever, because of what we've all been through, both individually and collectively. I won't say the P word except once, the pandemic. And we all went through something and we're dealing with the aftermath because your brain is built like a dam. And so what happens is that when you are in it and you are managing this acute crisis, whatever it may be in your life, whether it was the pandemic or something happening on the relationship front or your job or financially, you shore up your internal reserves and you keep it together at all costs. I've seen this with my patients with cancer. They will come in to see me and not shed a tear. They're going through their treatment, getting their chemotherapy, getting their radiation, and then they go see their doctor and get a clean bill of health. They see their oncologist and the doctor's like, come back in 6 months, you're great, cancer-free. And then they're in my office sobbing like, Dr. Nerurkar, what happened? I should be partying and I'm a mess. And that's what happens to your brain is that you keep it together at all costs. It's like a dam. And then when that acute crisis has passed, the dam breaks. You feel psychologically safe, and it's often a deluge. And right now, I think collectively and individually, we are experiencing that deluge of emotions, things that were pent up that we kept together. So you're seeing a lot of this play out on the national and international landscape. Even on social media, you see a lot of anger. And that's all because of this delayed stress reaction. It's a normal, healthy, biological process. The only way around is through, but it's still very painful. So hopefully the 5 resets can help you manage that delayed stress response so it doesn't go, off the rails.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not only personally painful, it's socially extremely maladaptive because it just creates tidal waves of reactivity and conflict, and it has major repercussions on everything you're seeing around the world. It's interesting to think of it as the origins of that breaking dam.
Yeah. And everyone's like, Dr. Nerurkar, when's it going to end? Like, when does that delayed stress response end? And I don't really know. because it goes in waves. And unfortunately, it's not like we just lived through the pandemic and then we had a respite. It's been sustained, right? It's like we never come back down. It's just one thing after the other. And so the good news is that you can reset your stress, rewire your brain in the midst of your messy, complicated, overscheduled life. You don't have to go to Bali for 6 months for a surf hiatus, though sign me up for that life plan. It's a dream of mine to do that. But we all have constraints. We have constraints on our time, our resources. Many of us are caring for loved ones, whether it be kids or elderly people, or we're just caregivers in the community in some way or fashion. So really just making sure that you fill your cup so you can continue doing the good work, and filling others' cups is really important. And you can do this in a very scientific way that's actionable through the 5 resets. And we can talk about each of those and certain strategies that may help.
Amazing. Okay, so reset number 1.
The first reset is find what matters most to you. The official title is Get Clear on What Matters Most. And the reason this is a great starting point is because when you are feeling a sense of stress, it is hard to get out of your own way. This is not you. This is your amygdala. The amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, and it is the source of your fight or flight response. And it is activated during times of stress. It's cave person mode, focused on survival, your immediate needs, self-preservation. And that is triggered when you're feeling a sense of stress. Remember, it's like you're in a forest and you're fighting a tiger. So either you're fighting the tiger or running away. So that amygdala is on high alert during periods of stress. And that is why by design, it is hard to get out of your own way, because you're thinking about your immediate needs. And when you're thinking about, oh, how do I fix my stress? This is a future focused line of thought, strategic planning, thinking, organization. That is all your prefrontal cortex. That is not your amygdala. And so if you put your hand on your forehead, the area right behind your forehead is your prefrontal cortex. That's what meditation really helps to strengthen. And the prefrontal cortex is what we're trying to get back online. And we're trying to dial down the volume of the amygdala with this first reset. And so one way you can do that is by creating a MOST goal. MOST is an acronym, and what it stands for is M, motivating, O, objective, S, small enough to virtually guarantee success, and T, timely. What you want to do is you want to reframe that conversation in your head, that inner critic that's saying, what's the matter with me? Why do I feel like this? Or why can't I get it together? Remember, it's not you, it's your biology of stress, it's your amygdala. And instead of asking yourself, what's the matter with me? Ask yourself, what matters most to me? And create a North Star using a MOST goal. So I've had lots of patients over the years create their MOST goal. One of my patients said he wants to have enough energy so that he can run around with his grandson. Another said that they want to sleep better so that they wake up more refreshed to take on the day. Other people have wanted to quit their jobs. But again, you might have a toxic job or a toxic boss. We know that, by the way, your boss has a greater influence on your mental health than any doctor or therapist.
Especially if you're your own boss.
That guy's a dick.
Especially. And so, what often happens is that it's hard to get out of your own way. And so when you create your MOST goal, it's like the first step to getting out of amygdala mode and back to the prefrontal cortex. And so you can do this exercise with anything. So if you're like, I want to get a new job, I hate my job. A lot of people are feeling burnout, 70 to 80% in a study in the UK, up to 90% of people just in the past month were feeling a sense of burnout. So you can say, I want a new job. So how do you get out of this mode? Because you need energy to find a new job. You have to look and search, etc. You can create a MOST goal. So make sure your goal is motivating, that it can get you up out of bed in the morning. Is it objective? It's something small that you can actually measure. And can you achieve it in 2 to 3 months? Understand that your brain, it takes 8 weeks to build a habit. Falling off and getting back on is part of habit formation. And so when you create a MOST goal, you can get out of that amygdala immediacy need for survival and start thinking with your prefrontal cortex. So it's like a good first step.
So it's essentially a short-term goal that helps you kind of shift out of this paralyzed stress response and begin to get the energy moving.
That's right.
Can you walk us through it? Can we make the MOST goals right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Motivating, objective, small enough to get done well or fast, and timely. What's the small enough to get Like small, like
Small enough to achieve. Yeah. Something that you could actually achieve and measure and, and so what's something that either you, Tasha, or you, Jeff, is there something that you feel like, I really have been wanting to do this, something I really wanted to achieve professionally, personally, to help manage your stress better?
mine is to get back to the gym and get fit again, which I started like 2 weeks ago. So
Congrats.
we're doing it. I've been most goaling.
That's awesome. So let's talk about that. So the first step when you are moving from like a sedentary life to exercise, by the way, I was like lifelong sedentary and now I'm like an avid, almost daily exerciser.
I'm the opposite. I was like so exercisey, and then pandemic happened, and then it's been 4 years. Now I'm like, okay, it's time.
That's great. And you've like had that sense of awareness that, okay, it's time now. The key when you're taking up a new habit is to do it every day rather than once in a while because you avoid decision fatigue. So it's less about like with exercise, it's great that this is about the promise of mental fitness, not physical fitness, right? So what you want to do is go for a 20-minute walk every single day because over time you will get back to that state that you were in when you were in college or whenever, when you were like this avid exerciser. But initially, when you're building a new habit, you just have to do it every day, a little bit every day. So start low, go slow. Because if you say to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and do an hour-long class, you might be able to sustain it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but then life gets in the way and then you start feeling bad about yourself, like, oh, I didn't go. And then your sense of agency, which is like your ability to feel like you can do hard things, decreases. And you're like, forget it. I might as well not go. That's the all or nothing fallacy with exercise. And so with your goal of, I want to exercise more, that's like an amazing goal. Exercise is so important for your brain, for your body, for your stress. It's wonderful. And so start off with a 20-minute walk. That's something that you can commit to. It will, motivating 20 minutes. It's one Instagram scroll or one TikTok scroll, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's like you can do that because people are like, I don't have time to exercise. It's too much, I have too many things to do. Totally hear you. I get it. I felt the same way when I was a medical resident. I had this state-of-the-art gym in the basement of my building. In my building, I walked in, heard the techno music, all of the bright lights, the mirrors, the machines, walked right out. And then I started walking a little bit, once 5 minutes, then built up to 10 minutes. I was like, oh, this feels good. And then I started getting into a daily walking habit of 20 minutes. And so getting into a habit like for you, Tasha, like 20 minutes of a walk every day. Over time, you can build up to 30 minutes. And then once that exercise, that brain pathway has been created, takes about 8 weeks. Understand that falling off and getting back on is part of that brain pathway. Then you can say, oh, I'm going to build in a couple of gym sessions and then really think about my physical fitness. But this is about the mental fitness, creating an exercise habit. So is it motivating? Can you commit to a 20-minute walk a day and say, oh, you know what? I'm not going to scroll TikTok or Instagram. I'm going to go for that walk instead. And so that's something, and you can use a little habit tracker. There's so many ways to stay motivated. Oh, is it objective? Yes. That's like a yes or no. Did I walk today? Yes, no. S, is it small enough to guarantee your success? 20 minutes? Yes. If you need to go for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just some form of walking every single day because it's getting you out. It's like wading through molasses when there's so much inertia when you are starting a new habit. And so just wading through. So yes, is it small enough to guarantee success? Even if you're like, I'm going to walk every single day. Doesn't matter how long you walk, just as long as you walk. You can aim for 20 minutes. Sometimes you'll get 5, sometimes you'll get 10, but you can still do that check like, yes, I did it. And then T, is it timely? Is it something that you can do over the next 2 to 3 months and virtually guarantee success? Yes, because over time, then in 3 months, you can reassess your most goal and say, you know what, I've been walking every single day for the past 90 days. I think I'm ready to step it up and start doing 1 or 2 gym sessions because your brain created a brain circuit of exercise and daily movement. Then it doesn't feel so difficult because that amygdala, the volume has gone down on that amygdala, your prefrontal cortex. There's all these great things we can talk about when it comes to exercise that happen to your prefrontal cortex. And then that makes you want to do it more and more and for longer periods of time.
I really like what you're saying. And I think what I like about how you're framing it is, I think so much of stress is you feel like you lost your agency. Like you're just swimming in stress, and you're to begin to actually say, I'm going to create a goal that's going to actually create some action. It's create some movement. It's going to feel empowering. It doesn't have to be a big goal. And that's so key what you're saying, but just to have that is to begin to create a kind of counter narrative, to begin to move in a different direction from that. And as I was thinking about my goal, it was, okay, what would mine be? Well, mine is my partner and I want to create a slightly different way of relating to our eldest son. Like we're having challenges with him, and we know there's a need for a different sort of parenting strategy. And we have some ideas around what that is. That would be what I would want in 3 months. And when I first thought of it, I was like, oh my God, how do I even begin? And what does it look like doing it every day? But I realized actually, when you put it like that, there is a way in which maybe every day I just make an objective to have a 5-minute kind of more collaborative problem solving conversation with my son, as one example. Or every day, Sarah and I, my partner, connect about okay, what worked and what didn't, or you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be this gigantic thing, but it begins to make a beachhead in the paralysis of feeling like life is something you're subject to, as opposed to something that you're actually making happen yourself.
So well said. And that's exactly what's happening in your brain when you're building a new circuit. It's like a dirt road, or perhaps no road at all, just like dense forest. And then you start building that circuit. So like, a 5-minute conversation with your partner or your son, or just this awareness and acknowledgement every single day, or with you, Tasha, 5 minutes of a walk every day. Then that forest becomes a dirt road. Over time, it becomes a 1-lane, 2-lane paved road. And with time and practice, because you are building that circuit every single day, reinforcing it a little bit every day, just a little bit, it very soon becomes a 4-lane highway.
And then you can
and then it's easy.
Box stores on the side of it. And you can sell shit.
Hotels.
Hotels, casinos, ammo stores.
You're gonna get hitchhikers.
Gun shops, hitchhikers.
Capitalism, baby.
Bring it on.
Okay. Reset number 2.
Reset number 2. Find quiet in your noisy world. This is all about creating boundaries. Like I said, right? Wouldn't we all just love to just check out and be like, peace out, I'm going to Bali, Maldives. I don't know. Pick your place and just hang out there for a year. That would be great, but not all of us can do that. And certainly I can't. And then certainly when you come back, everything is still as is, right? All your problems have remained. So instead, how do you create a little mental bandwidth? And the way you do that is there's several ways that I talk about, several strategies in this second reset. But one really powerful one is to create some digital boundaries. And so one really powerful way that you can create some space and quiet in this noisy world is by switching your phone to grayscale. We're going to keep it like as practical as possible in this conversation, because if you want to go deeper and learn more about the theories, and everything is science-based, and you can read the 5 resets, you can read my other work, but the cool thing about science, guys, is that it's very practical and actionable. It doesn't really need a spin. And what you'll notice is that when you start doing some of these things, within days, you'll be like, oh my God, it feels so much better. Whoa, she was right. Like it's very easy to see that effect because of this idea of neuroplasticity, which simply is a fancy word. It means your brain is a muscle. So the same way that you would train your bicep by doing, curls, and you would progressively overload, right? We all understand what that looks like. Like you first lift 2 pounds and 5 pounds and 10 pounds. Your muscles just get stronger and stronger. Your brain is just like that. It's a muscle. Neuroplasticity. That's all it is. Meditation, a great way to build neuroplasticity. But really, everything you do in your day-to-day can help rewire your brain for less stress. Either you're doing something to help or not. And so digital boundaries is a wonderful way to create some mental respite. And so grayscale, what is it? Grayscale is simply, let me get my phone. Grayscale is simply switching your phone
I'm going to do it.
off of color mode to black and white. And you want to do grayscale, particularly at night at the end of your day, when you've finished everything that you need to do and you're finally sitting down, you've committed to going to bed early. And then before you know it, you're scrolling and you're like, wait, it's 1 a.m. What happened? And so that is often what happens to so many people. It's called revenge bedtime procrastination, and we can talk about that.
With that Japanese term. That's my favorite. Sarah and I talk about it all the time, my wife. Revenge bedtime procrastination.
That's it.
On your earlier self, but yeah.
Yeah, so grayscale is a great way to short circuit that. And grayscale is simply turning your phone off of color mode to black and white. What does that do? That makes scrolling less enticing, less addictive. It decreases your screen time. One marketing executive described it as walking through an aisle of cereals and seeing all the cereal boxes in black and white. It's like, are you going to pick up anything? Of course not. So let's walk through, and I can show you on the Apple devices. I don't quite know the Android devices as well. So you're going to go to settings, then you hit accessibility.
It's my favorite practice we've done in a while.
Then
I get to look at the phone.
display and text size, down to color filters. And as you'll see here, it says color filters, and you're going to toggle this color filters from here
Oh yeah. Grayscale.
to
Ugh.
off.
Ugh, my phone looks disgusting.
This is so sad.
And so what I've set up on my phone with this grayscale is that I have an action button. I have one of the newer ones. And so I've been able to toggle on and off. And so you can do that with yours as well. And what that does is, during periods of focus when you don't want to be using your phone, or you would like to be off your phone at night, you just switch it on, switch it off. It's hard. Most people, when I show this to them, they're like, I'm going to keep my phone on grayscale all day. You actually can't, because you'll be amazed. Like, you'll be online shopping, you'll be checking email, and so much of the colors are part of the user interface that you actually can't use your phone for long periods of time when it's on grayscale. The reason grayscale is so important is because there is a biological phenomenon known as popcorn brain. And grayscale helps decrease your risk of popcorn brain. And so popcorn brain is a phenomenon coined by a psychologist named David Levy. And it simply means that your brain, it feels like your brain is popping from spending too much time online. And it's this overstimulated state. It is different from internet addiction. Internet addiction is something that is exceedingly rare. It's part of the DSM-5 criteria. It's like a medical diagnosis. It means you're having difficulty relating to your colleagues, it's affecting your relationships, it's affecting your sleep, your work, etc. That's not most of us. Most of us don't have internet addiction. But what is ubiquitous and what most of us all have is popcorn brain. And particularly when you're stressed, you are more likely to be on your phone because of this primal urge to scroll. We talked about the amygdala, and when you're, it's cave person mode. When we were all cave people, we would all sleep, and there would be a night watchman keeping tabs. And now we have all become our own night watchman. And so scrolling, and the way we scan for danger in our environment is through scrolling. It's the modern day equivalent. And that is why your amygdala is always on. And so creating some real clear digital boundaries, grayscale is a great one, is one way to do that.
It turns off popcorn brain being a kind of overstimulated, sketched out, stretched out brain that's useless for anything except for continuing to do more scrolling. So
you don't scroll though.
I'm not a big scroll, but I know that experience. I know I'm on a screen too much. There's a kind of sketchy, I don't know how to explain it, like overstimulated and kind of like flattened out. And it's like, I haven't been in the real world enough. I feel like I forgot that I have a body. My brain is like thinned out somehow. I'm just describing the phenomenology.
That's cool that you can tell the difference. Most people can't. I remember I was a late adopter, and when I got my iPhone, I just remembered like it was a distinct difference from my flip phone. I know there's like this big, Drew Barrymore just had a really great clip where she talked about how she wants to go back to getting a flip phone. And I would be so down with that myself.
It's a thing. All right. Reset number 3.
So the third reset, stop, breathe, be, is one of the best techniques. And it's a 3-second brain reset. It gets you out of what if thinking, because anxiety is a future focused emotion. It's like, what if I fail? What if this doesn't go well? What if? Gets you out of that what if thinking back to what is in the here and now. And so what is stop, breathe, be? We can do it together. It's a 3-second brain reset. Whatever we're doing, we're going to stop. Breathe. Take a deep breath in and out, and just be. I learned this technique when I was a medical resident in the midst of my stress struggle. It was one of the first mindfulness techniques that I learned. And I would do this every single time. I would knock on the door and turn the doorknob as I would enter the patient's room. And I did this 30, 40 times a day. And so you can use this as a doorknob moment when you're entering in and out of rooms, when you're working from home, when you're clicking join Zoom. Zoom rooms count too. You can do this when you are dropping your kids off at school or picking them up, or in the morning when you're brushing your teeth and going through the list of all the things you have to get done for the day. So many moments that are ripe for stop, breathe, be. And it's a really powerful practice. And what it does is it taps into your mind-body connection, and it helps influence your mind-body connection, because we know the mind-body connection is happening in the background at all times, but there are ways that you can actually influence it and redirect it for less stress. And Stop, Breathe, Be is a great gateway to learn how to do that. And it's accessible to anyone at any time.
I love that one because it's so simple. And a lot of people, it's kind of like the gateway to meditating or mindfulness or whatever. And so many people have like that hurdle of like, oh, meditation, like I can't, if there's no time in my day and I don't know how and I'm squirrely. It's like, if you could do that, if you could just do that for like a month, it would be so much easier just to maybe consider sitting down.
That's the path in the road.
Yes.
That you're talking about. It starts to
build the
widen the path in the
highway.
forest. Yeah.
That's right. And when you do Stop, Breathe, Be, the breath is the only physiological mechanism, the only bodily mechanism that it's under voluntary control and involuntary control, right? It's something that you talk about a lot. Your brain doesn't do that. Your digestion, your heart, your breathing is the only thing. So when you practice Stop, Breathe, Be over and over and over again, it won't work one time, but when you incrementally do that, you actually rewire that brain.
Aditi, I know that you've got to take off and do some amazing health things for the rest of the world. Our time is coming to an end. But before you go, can you let our listeners know how they can connect with you, where they can find your book?
Before they do that, just say the last two resets.
Oh, okay. Let us know what they are, even though we
Last
can't
two
taste
resets.
them right now.
The fourth reset is Come Up for Air. And the fifth reset is Bring Your Best Self Forward. And there's about 5 or 6 techniques in those two. Also cost-free, time efficient, and science-backed.
Amazing. Okay, so now let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can learn more, read your book, all those good things.
So the 5 resets, my book, is available in 35 countries and 15 languages. So you can choose the language and country that you are in and get a copy. You can find me all over social media at Dr. Aditi Nerurkar. That's at DrAditiNerurkar. And check out 5 resets, number 5 resets.com, to take your own personalized stress quiz, which I have given to many patients over the years. You can get your stress score just like you would get a blood pressure and continue monitoring your stress score using the 5 resets into your everyday life.
That's really cool. We'll include all of those links in our post.
Dr. Aditi, thank you for the work you do. Really great to hang out with you.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun talking to you both.
Likewise.
All right.
Take care. Welcome to the MindBod Adventure Pod, where every week we dive into a different practice, a different perspective on life, and you try it out with us. Join us on Substack at mindbodpod.com to watch this episode as a video podcast. And if you want to support our crazy adventures and get fun perks and exclusives along the way, join us as a paid subscriber. Now, onto this week's adventure.